Before I move on to something else, I want to stop and drill down into what I see as the core of the problem and give a bit more of a granular and specific definition. I think the root cause of the crisis of reality is what I'm going to be calling the symbol referent problem. Our senses actually provide limited data about the thing we're trying to observe. For example, if a bug is camouflaged as a stick, according to our senses, it is in fact a stick. Any information beyond what our senses directly provide comes from inference or deduction, so our ability to observe the world accurately relies on our ability to reason. In fact, our cerebral cortex seems to be designed to fill in the gaps in our perceptions, and it makes us special, unique in the animal kingdom. And the symbol referent problem is a cognitive error that effectively disables the cerebral cortex. We can never actually experience a thing as it truly is. Our perceptions are like a bubble that separates us from reality. As far as our conscious awareness is concerned, we exist in sort of a field of abstraction. And to further compound the issue, once we observe things, we have to abstract them out into language which is purely abstract in order to communicate or reason about them. Language is an arbitrary symbolic reference to a real thing, and it only means something if we agree on the definition. So the symbol in this case are the words, and the referent is the thing that the word is referring or pointing to. A thing is what it is, regardless of what you call it, and it's made distinct from other things by its unique set of qualities or traits. And those qualities constitute the definition. So in order for a word to accurately point to a real referent, we have to accurately identify the traits or the qualities of that referent and share the definition so we can communicate about it. If we don't share definitions, we can't convey any information between each other with our words. And if the definition we agree upon doesn't accurately reflect reality, we're not communicating any useful information to each other. So if we all agreed to expand the definition of the word cat to include humans wearing hats that have cat ears on them, it would be rendered officially true by mutual agreement and common usage. But then the word would contain multiple unique referents that are made distinct from each other through their qualities. It becomes a broader category, and if we want to reason about or communicate about those individual referents, we need to identify those with new linguistic constructions. Reification is when you mistake the symbol for the thing it's referring to, and the symbol referent problem is a broad normalization of reification, which makes communication nearly impossible, and it makes one susceptible to deception. A lot of the processing of our mind is unconscious. When a word is evoked, you don't think about the qualities or the definition of the referent directly, you think about it indirectly or subconsciously. And implicit thinking is thinking that happens below the level of your conscious awareness. So reification happens when you never bring your unconscious or implicit definitions up to the level of conscious awareness through rational analysis. You take a joke or a metaphor literally, you develop superstitions, or you can allow your understanding of a concept or thing to inherit qualities from another concept or thing through transference of the word. You believe the definition of the word you apply to a thing makes it what it is and not the other way around. Sometimes people experience catastrophic and radical symbol referent misalignment where they can't make a distinction between themselves and, let's say, a glass of orange juice or Napoleon Bonaparte. So, extreme cases are easy to identify as a form of madness or delusion. But it's an inherent human bias, so it affects us all, and especially if you're not aware, self-aware about it. And reification has been normalized in part, at least, through a horde of philosophical justifications for it, which gives it an air of legitimacy. These philosophies redefine this cognitive error as the fundamental nature of reality, that reality is perception, that there is no objective truth, no referent for the words to reliably point to. I'm not aware of a word that describes the broad category of all the philosophies that justify reification, so I'm going to call them reificationists for the sake of discussion. All these philosophies share the same fundamental flaw, which is they are axiomatically irrational. They undermine objective truth, which is the foundation of logic. So in order to persuade somebody that they're true, they don't actually have to be rational, they just have to be persuasive. If reality is a matter of perception, it's determined by consensus, or authority, which usually is what dictates consensus. Before you even approach these wordy documents that justify reification, you can stop at the claim itself, because if there is no such thing as objective truth, that must include the claim that there is no such thing as objective truth. That can't be objectively true either. It's just a claim that's no more legitimate than any other. And it's a statement that all following statements are not going to be objective either, which includes all arguments for one of these reificationist philosophies. That means these philosophies are characteristically, axiomatically, foundationally deceptive and hypocritical. And since logic makes claims of objective truth, logic itself is false. It can't tell you anything objectively true because there's no such thing, so it's just a rhetorical strategy that sometimes it sounds convincing, but ultimately it's just a matter of opinion, just like everything else. That may be your truth, but it's not my truth. Your philosophy informs your thought and your behavior. And if your philosophy entails this reification symbol referent problem, you'll be both manipulative and easily manipulated. Because reificationists only acknowledge rhetorical styles that are manipulative and deny rhetorical styles that are objective. They have to use appeals to emotion or appeals to authority. They can't use logic. Unless they want to do it selectively, they can do whatever they want because they can define things how they want. But they don't accept logic as foundationally true. So that's the one argumentation style that won't persuade them. And the two remaining rhetorical modes are logically fallacious and manipulative. Manipulation is a form of force, and if there's no objective standard or truth to appeal to, common understanding has to be derived through force. And if you take this for granted as part of your philosophy, you can be more easily manipulated by authority or your emotions. And you have no objective way of discerning that you're being manipulated. You're completely open to having an authority spin on reality imposed onto you. If there's no such thing as objective truth, that implicitly entails that there's no such thing as dishonesty or lies or manipulation or misunderstanding. It inherently justifies those things, unless you're just selectively using those words because you know the effect it'll have on others. What ultimately matters is what you can get people to believe. Vices automatically become virtues by applying the label virtue to them. You can, in one way, categorize reificationists into two groups. The explicit ones that explicitly state that there is no such thing as an objective truth, and then the indirect ones that claim there is such a thing as an objective truth, but they still reify their abstractions. They're mistaking the symbols they create for the thing that those symbols are meant to reference. And a second way to categorize them is wolves versus sheep, let's say. People learn to unconsciously operate this way by adopting the philosophy. But because it justifies manipulation, other people can use the philosophy as a cover for direct and intentional manipulation. There's no way to 100% reliably determine their motivations because that's a subjective experience. So they can paint themselves as incompetent rather than malicious, or even victims. We can't reliably distinguish between one and the other. So these malicious actors have a stake in persuading everybody else to believe this stuff genuinely, because it provides them that cover, the wolf in sheep's clothing. And I would say that reificationism in some form or another is the norm. It's a widespread epidemic, and this is the problem.